A few days ago, I uploaded a video about the Metal Gear Solid series, and the reception has been really positive, so I just wanted to make a follow-up video and say a big thank you to all of the— Man really forgot about Peace Walker! Oh, I don't know, not acknowledging the existence of Peace Walker. No, I really like Peace Walker, it's just not— Where is Peace Walker? Okay, that's really loud. Peace Walker Erasure. Why haven't you mentioned Peace Walker? It was my first Metal Gear game. What the fuck has Peace Walker? Okay, fine. Peace Walker. Released in 2010 for the PSP of all things, Peace Walker picks up several years after Snake Eater and Portable Ops. No, I'm not doing a video on this. Its plot mainly centres on Snake's growing disillusionment with government-controlled military operations and the overall lack of care for soldiers, just like him and the boss. It also focuses on the formation of his mercenary group, MSF, which represents a really pivotal point for him. Snake is now choosing not to fight for nations, but for his own ideals. He's creating a place where soldiers would always have a home and couldn't be discarded like himself and his mentor.
It sounds like heaven.
Close, but not quite. Outer heaven.
For as short as it is, it's actually a really great story and a wonderful evolution piece for Big Boss. It still keeps the philosophical themes of legacy and governmental manipulation that the series is famous for at this point, but it frames them through the eyes of this emerging warlord rather than the victim that he is in Snake Eater. It's not all serious though, it never really is in a Metal Gear game. Peace Walker has some of the campiest moments in the entire series. You've got the cat from Monster Hunter showing up, Kaz and his focus on handling meat, and I'm not just talking about his burgers. This fucking J-pop song that plays while you fight a little girl in a Metal Gear. There's so many ridiculous moments, and in standard Metal Gear fashion it all fits perfectly.
I don't know much about what goes on up in the sky. What I do know is that NORAD tracks Santa Claus on its radar.
From a gameplay standpoint, Peace Walker introduced a number of innovations that would influence the future of the series. The base building mechanics, the fault and recovery system on soldiers, and the free choice mission-based structure would end up being expanded upon and becoming the core loop of the Phantom Pain. I found everything about this game to be really fun. The base building and command over how MSF was ran really helped my immersion into this militia group and made it so that I actually did care about my base. I think another core aspect of making me care was the missions themselves. A lot of the side missions had to be completed by the soldiers you recruit rather than Snake, soldiers with these unique names and stats that would end up feeling like legitimately reliable characters. I also have to praise this game on the way it regularly gives you expansions after every couple of story missions to the systems that are introduced in this game. I think it was a really digestible way for me and other players to become accustomed to the new direction that the gameplay takes. You get each direction of MSF slowly drip-fed to you with explanations on why they're created. You get unlockables in the R&D section that can only be unlocked by progressing the story missions. Even creating your own Metal Gear is fused into how far you are into the story and the side missions. These systems all feel new and exciting, and the rate that Kojima gives them to you is extremely manageable to take on, which only adds to the overall quality of them. With that said, I think these gameplay systems are more evolutionary than revolutionary, and I think the narrative, while it is quite dense and compact, and I'm not saying it isn't important, but I feel like it mainly serves to explain how Big Boss gains the infrastructure and mindset needed for the Phantom Pain. I think we as players needed to see that Big Boss had done this before and that he knew what he was doing. I think in short, and what I tried to explain in the comments of the original video, is that Peace Walker is a narrative bridge. It connects Metal Gear Solid 3 to Metal Gear Solid 5, but it doesn't redefine the larger plot arc. Big Boss builds MSF, fights an Amazon Alexa, and takes another step toward becoming the antagonist of the series we know him to be. It is an extremely fun game, and it's almost baffling to think about something of this quality coming out at the time it did on a handheld gaming device no less. But is it as essential to the series as the numbered titles? I don't personally think so, but it is an extremely clarifying title for Phantom Pain. Just like... I think where Peace Walker acts as a narrative bridge, Ground Zeroes is more of a tonal and thematic one. On paper, Ground Zeroes is a really short game, and I remember when it came out I wasn't quite sure what was happening with it. Everyone knew that a new Metal Gear game was coming out, but this wasn't that game, and it was only one mission for 30 something quid. It just sounded a little bit lackluster to me. But I think what it lacks in length, it compensates for in the extreme shift in tone and storytelling. I spoke in the original video about Snake Eater's tragic characters, and I've always held the idea that the Metal Gear story as a whole is actually pretty dark in places. It just has this fun, campy exterior. Ground Zeroes doesn't even try to keep that aesthetic, except for the non-canon side missions. The horrors that you see at Camp Omega, systemic abuse, extreme brutality, contrast sharply with the almost romanticised and tame concept of soldiers that the previous game had set up. This is no longer the haha I'm sneaking into a base to level up my soldiers game. This is the
Keep her gun in!
Jesus Christ, what the fuck game. This game shows that Big Boss is no longer that victim of politics that he once was and someone to root for, but he's someone whose choices have started to spiral beyond his control, with devastating effects on those under him, including his soldiers. To me, it felt like Ground Zeroes was Kojima's way of saying, combine this with Peace Walker mechanics, this is what Metal Gear looks like now. Now, with all of this said, I still put it in the same boat as Peace Walker. I don't think Ground Zeroes is required for someone to enjoy the series. However, it is a very good game, and it is clarifying for the future title, just like Peace Walker. Players can definitely play the Phantom Pain without ever touching it, and the core of the story will still make sense. It's just that without Ground Zeroes, that story's emotional weight will feel noticeably lighter. While I don't think Peace Walker or Ground Zeroes are as important as some of the other games for understanding the overall story, I don't think they're worthless footnotes either, and that's definitely not the impression I was trying to give with my original video. I think they are both excellent games that work really well at their main purpose, bridging the story of Big Boss from Snake Eater to Phantom Pain. These games definitely help contextualise the shifts in tone from Snake Eater and justify the new gameplay mechanics, while also deepening Snake's motivations. I think in a series that is as story dense and kind of symbolically rich as Metal Gear Solid, that context, again, while it's optional, is still very valuable. Let me just reiterate, I would recommend these games to anyone, just never over the titles I originally spoke about. Now can you stop threatening to eat me, please?